This is probably going to be a long one, so let's get into it. Slavery, women's suffrage, and Jim Crow, and redlining, and discriminatory practices, and immigration, and cries for school busing, and budget increases, and welfare increases, and more free housing, and gay marriage, and representation for representation's sake, and on this goes for thousands of examples. What is the one thing every single one of these things have in common? It's someone other than the scary straight white male asking white people to change, and white people changed. The supposedly bigoted, racist, xenophobic, homophobic, ultra-right-wing, supremacist, patriarchal, religious zealot, privileged princes of all things that glow and all worldly greenery have ceded ground and have changed every single time they have been asked to all throughout history. Still today, in 2021, despite these many multiple thousands of changes, concessions, and special privileges that the racist, white privileged, power-hungry bully has made for everyone else, we still hear on a daily basis that we need to change. After more changes than you can even count, more concessions than anyone would be comfortable making, we're told constantly that we need more diversity to be strengthened, that we need social justice education for all white people. It comes from all sides. Minority groups of POC demanding that we learn how awful white people are historically and present day. LGBT groups demanding we teach young children about gender reassignment surgeries and non-binary and transgender issues as soon as they start school. Muslim groups demanding white Christians cede religious ground in school and embrace more of their holidays and culture. Latinx groups demanding that more of their culture be represented all over our nations, more of their holidays represented. It's never ending. At this point, it's a case of the have not being as powerful as the want. I ask you, in all genuine sincerity, not to be mean or snarky or a douche, what does the obese individual with a $150 pair of shoes, a $200 outfit, $800 iPhone, and a $50,000 car actually need? Self-restraint and portion control pop to my mind, but there's nothing that they need. It's all about the want. Imagine you were homeless. It would be a crappy state of existence, to be sure, especially if you were a white American. There is no one out there who's willing to help you. Damn near every single outlet, from private charities and advocacy groups to governments, have funneled all of their time, money, and resources into assisting illegal immigrants with food, shelter, and our nation's money. But just imagine you suffered this fate, and so you had to beg for money. You found this guy who has a lot of money, so you start out with a sob story here and there, hoping he'll give you money. You see him once a week. The first time he gave you $10. Next time, give him a sadder story, and boom, $20. Then you really got him the next time. A big 50-piece dropped on you after you brought him to tears with the story about your struggle. And on this goes for many weeks. Come to find out, however, you aren't actually homeless in this scenario. You were just pretending to be. Over the course of a few months, you have milked this dude for thousands of dollars, LARPing his needy while panhandling. He's your mark. He's the sucker at the poker table. He's your cash cow. And you're squeezing those udders like Sylvester Stallone, trying not to drop that bitch in cliffhanger. There's nothing you actually need, but there's plenty of shit that you want. The want is the driving force here. The need is non-existent with modern living Western POC, while the want is all-consuming and controlling. They have been taught for many years, probably all their lives, that America is a magical nation where things fall from the sky upon good little consumers. And if you don't have every single little gadget and gold watch and hair weave and car rim set that you personally desire, that's because you're a victim of oppression. Let's be 100% real here, shall we? Communism is where every socialist is heading, where every mere Marxist wants to visit. Not all communists or socialists are basic Marxists, but every Marxist-leaning or democratic socialist individual holds communism as their ultimate goal, their epitome of a fair society. Though what is communism? State-run everything, state-owned everything, and a forced-to-be-equal proletariat. This means no fancy iOS devices and no hipster get-ups that make you stand out among your hipster brethren. You can't have a better job and make more money than anyone else. Everyone is the absolute lowest common denominator, and that's the only way to conceivably make it work. The left, as they relish pointing out to us after Biden's obviously fair and nothing at all to see here presidential domination of 80 million votes, are the consumers to end all consumers. Their purchasing power drives the American engine. They lined up to shout at us that they were the world's #1 consumers, that they spent the most money, they drove the economy, they kept us all afloat. And they were also taught to believe that rather than taking all of this away, communism somehow gives them more material possessions, more money to spend. It's a fact. The average person calling themselves a communist will today have 3 Starbucks, blow up Twitter with the latest edition of the iPhone, and order in Uber Eats this evening at a 45% markup. And probably not even tip worth a shit. Case in point, They were the ones vying hardest for the stimulus checks and continue to do so. Not because of hardship, not because they own a failing business that needs a boost, but because they want a phone with 5 cameras on it this time. They want to one-up Frank Lutz and eat at every little ethnic joint around, and they want it delivered to them at their convenience. My point here in that long screed, if you think the basic communist desires and demands the material, then just imagine a nomadic hunter-gatherer genome that actually needs the material possessions because they fill in as the bright feathers in lieu of actually being a peacock. The entire cultural breeding strategy of the nomad is to stand out to other people, all of whom are considered competition at a visceral genetic level, as dominant in the social hierarchy. The Jordans and grills and chains and weaves and rims and stereo systems and the gates and all of their mannerisms aren't uniquely some African American trend. They're a genetic inevitability. I'm trying to tell you here that they're never going to stop wanting. They're never going to stop demanding. Combined with an outright communist political movement, racial minorities, the alphabets, and the brainwashed consumer communists have formed this cognitive dissonant, self-defeating, amoral Voltron of stupidity and demand white society change even more. Change again. Change here. Change there. Change everywhere. Change to suit us. Change to suit them. Change some other way that it doesn't suit yourself because you're a horrible person who doesn't deserve happiness. You're a privileged oppressor who's automatically racist from birth, and the only way to conquer the wrongfulness of your existence is to change, change, and change again, and meet another list of our demands that we throw up at random without any logic, reasoning, or facts behind it. But who has changed and who hasn't? Let's look around the globe at those awful whites who refuse to give up their white supremacy and white power and who oppress everyone else with slavery, oppression, segregation, no women's rights, no LGBTQIA plus minus equals whatever rights. So let's look around the globe here. Let's just go ahead and let's look around the globe here and see. Here is America, the United States of America and Canada. Then, of course, you got Mexico and Guatemala and El Salvador all down through here. But here is considered white people in America. No slavery. Not only no slavery, women's rights. Not only women's rights, we don't execute homosexuals or oppress them. We have gay marriage. We let drag queens go in and teach their story hour. Then up here, Canada. Can you get any more progressive than Canada? Canada is very white. Canada is very white. Canada is close to 90% white people. And Canada is as progressive as you get. They welcome immigrants with open arms. Again, slavery illegal. They don't have slavery. They have women's rights out the wazoo. They have LGBT rights out the wazoo. Everywhere. And let's get over here. Oh man, my globe is a little... Alright, we fixed it. Now let's get over here. Let's go up here to Europe. There's Ireland. My geography isn't the best in the world, but here's Ireland. And there's Scotland and the UK. And down there's France. And we got down here with Italy and Spain. And look, all these places, slavery is illegal. They have women's rights. Hell, over here when you get into northwestern Europe and you get up through Scandinavia and everything, women are the preferred leaders, and they don't have slavery, and they welcome immigrants with open arms. There are story after story after story in Sweden and Norway and Denmark and Finland, etc., of the governments controlled by the evil white person throwing citizens out in place of refugees. Oh, you're behind on your bills? Out to put refugees in here. And then you get over here with Russia. They have problem with the female trafficking. That is very true, and a lot of these places have issues with child trafficking, and it's not like we have a Donald Trump that can fight against that, right? But it's illegal there. It's illegal. But then we get down into the blessed POC land. This is the most hallowed ground of POC ever. It's way out of proportion here. Africa is way bigger than this as a continent landmass. But there's over 9 million slaves here. Legal. Women's rights. What? What are women's rights? LGBT rights. What are they? But we don't call them bad. We don't say they need to change. There's nothing about them. And we get up in here into the Middle East and India and Pakistan. Over 10 million slaves. What are women's rights? What are they? What are LGBT rights? Oh, you mean those people we throw off of buildings? And here, over here is China. China's over here hanging out. What? They got child slavery in their sweatshops there. They're genociding the Uyghurs there. They need to change, right? No, no. And we go down here. Here's Australia. Is this New Zealand over here? My globe's kind of tilted. I'm not the best at geography ever. But again, no slavery, women's rights, LGBT rights. I'm just saying, these are the people that you say need to change. They need to change. The people that come from this little area of the world is where we're from as Europeans. We're the people who have changed. We're the only people who have changed. No one else does. No one else will. No one else is told to. No one else is compelled to. White folk, change, change, change. Yeah, it's nothing to do with anything we're doing wrong. It's everything to do with these spoiled idiots who want. They want more. What's the way to get more? Cry and complain that you're somehow oppressed, that someone is somehow against you. When these people who are the majority population here have done everything, have made every little change, every little concession, all along the way throughout the course of history to change to suit non-whites more, to suit non-traditionalists more, to suit non-conformists more, to suit people who are outside of, what they would refer to as, the white male traditional Christian heterosexual patriarchal whatever. We're the ones who have changed. The only ones who have changed. The point here, every single little concession ever made in the history of modern Western civilization has been made by white men to suit other people. Every single one. From slavery and segregation to women's voting and gay marriage and gay adoption and it's just being repetitive at this point. There has been zero pressure that's ever been placed on anyone to assimilate into a white Western world if they're not white people. There will be protests and pickets and riots over a mere hint at requiring people from Central and South America to learn English. God forbid. That would be normalizing white supremacy by stating that a nation has a unified language. Instead, put a Spanish menu up beside the English because they don't realize that Spanish is also a white language, but it makes them feel better, so we did it. We changed everywhere. We have changed. We have changed to the point white people are becoming a minority in most of the few little countries in which we were once a majority. And we're only 10% of the global population. 90% of humans are the poor oppressed POC, yet it's the 10% who has to constantly change and rearrange and get strange and blow out our brains to suit them. Move over, Eminem. America, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada aside, we're talking about Europe also, where white people literally evolved. You cannot get more of a homeland than actually evolving there. Still, because people have simply asked them to, whites have entirely changed in these places and have given everyone else rights and benefits that they could never dream of in their own home countries and their lands of evolution. Who has ever changed for us? They call us the bad guys as white people, but we took a trip around the world here just a few minutes ago. We see unequivocally that white people have banned slavery, granted women's rights, conceded on LGBT rights, etc. Have Muslims ever changed anything about how they practice their religion in our nations? Have they ever lightened up at all on their infidel stance? No. And I'm Islamophobic for merely asking that. Have Jews ever just lived peacefully in any of our nations without inherently meddling in our government affairs and trying to reshape our environments to suit them better? They're guests who habitually terraform other people's landscapes to more suit them and their desires and their needs. And I'm anti-Semitic for asking if they've ever even tried to assimilate. Have blacks ever tried to change their behaviors? One little iota? The same population versus crime proportionality they have in the USA, where they blame it on slavery and Jim Crow, they also display in many other European nations like the UK, which didn't have either one of those things. But have they ever tried to change their behaviors or tried to assimilate into someone else's culture? No, and I'm an anti-black, white supremacist racist for merely asking that. Asians creating little Chinese and Korean towns in different communities inside of white nations. Latinos creating barrios and bowling over their host culture with their own. That's fine. But remember that time white people did apartheid? Oh, God, so bad that white people did that. The only tangible difference in any of these situations is that white people were more successful with their separation, with their segregation. Every single non-white group has its own little cultural enclaves, its own behaviors, its own language, its own properties. They love segregation. They love apartheid, just not when whites do it because, God forbid, they have to look over the fence and see someone who's actually happy. I'm sick of hearing whites are the ones who need to change when no one else has ever tried to change. It's like an alcoholic on step 11 being told by some fall-down drunk asshole that he, the guy on step 11, is the horrible alcoholic. Dude, I've already took the steps. What have you done, man? Motherfucking drunk. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The globe is anti-white. No matter the incomprehensible number of changes that we have made, they always want more, always demand more. And a mere suggestion of non-whites making a tiny little dial adjustment to their behaviors, the entire world cries out that this is exactly why white people are horrible. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Tell white people they're horrible, they're horrible, they're horrible, and white people say, no, we ain't, maybe you need to change. Oh, proof that you're horrible. Catch-22, whatever you want to call it. I'm done changing. I'm done conceding. It's all my people have historically done for hundreds of fucking years. As a result, we grew up on a mountain without a pot to piss in. Meanwhile, they were gutting colonial mansions and turning them into Section 8 apartments where black people lived rent-free. You want me to change to further suit you? Keep it up and we'll be changing uniforms.